Welcome everybody to a rainy morning in California, hopefully sunny somewhere along the country here. I appreciate you taking the time to join us today for our first webinar here for this year. And this is really a great one. It's got a tremendous amount of material here from a great study that was recently concluded by CABA, the Continental Automated Building Association. And we're going to talk about intelligent buildings and the impact of the Internet of Things. Today I am your host. I'm Rolf von Soesen, VP of Marketing and Products here at Lucid. We're CABA members, and I found that membership to be a great source of information and a great group to be a part of. What we'll do through today is we'll try and keep this to about 35 or 40 minutes. If you have questions throughout, feel free to use the questions function in GoToMeeting. We'll go through the report background a little bit, then we'll set the stage on what IoT is, just define it a little bit so we're all got sort of a common language there. We'll talk about some key survey findings, some interesting ahas, and some trends. Then we'll talk about IoT roadmaps. We'll talk a little bit about customers that, or companies, organizations that have a low level, a medium level, and a high level of automation already in place, what that means for them, where they are finding themselves, what they are seeing for their next steps. And then we'll conclude with any questions that we haven't answered or material that we need to cover. A word of warning to get started. There's a lot of material in here, and generally I have kept the slides fairly heavy in terms of text, much heavier than I would like, but since I will be passing along this material to you as a reference document after, I thought it'd be great for you to have that material to read through and to reference at a later time. So I opted for the direction of more material and copy on the slides rather than inspirational photography, and I hope that you will appreciate that as you have that then as a reference document for the future. About the report authors, the report was done by CABA, the Continental Automated Buildings Association, specifically their Intelligent Buildings Council. They're based in Toronto, Canada, and they do a few big research projects per year. This was probably the biggest, they call it their landmark research project for 2016. It was concluded in December of 2016, so it's as current information as is out there. IHS Markit, a company based in London, they're a large international research firm. They're the ones who conducted the research project and are responsible for creating the materials. Participating companies, the sponsors, were really a cross-section of leaders from the buildings and automations and Internet of Things industry. Lucid was very proud to be a part of this group and to be associated with this project, and it certainly was a pleasure working with all the different representatives from different companies that were part of this. In terms of the report methodology and the participants, so there were kind of two sections to it. One was a more qualitative part of interviews with different decision makers and different individuals within the ecosystem. And then secondly was a survey that was put out to the different individuals in North America, mainly United States and Canada. It targeted over 150 building facilities and IT managers. And on the right-hand side, you can see a bit of the breakdown of who was interviewed in terms of building operators, facility managers, IT managers, and owners. And then on the bottom, you see a little bit about the building sizes that were indicated. As you might expect, there were a larger number of small to medium-sized buildings, but some of those portfolios also were made up of a variety of buildings of that size. respondents kind of were categorized into a couple of different categories. And one was low automation, so they have kind of low levels of automation to main building systems. There were individual devices that were managed manually, no centralized control. Going to the spectrum then of some automation, some centralized control, going into medium automation respondents, where they did have some centralized in-house controls for individual buildings, with some networking, going then into the high automation respondents. So we're high levels of automation, and people that are really starting to take advantage of the Internet of Things and being able to take more advantage of some of that automation and some of those systems. And this is going to be important specifically when we talk about the roadmap piece, where we have some specific observations about people in those individual groups. So next, let's set the stage a little bit about what Internet of Things actually means in this context, because I sort of have found that if I ask 20 people the definition of Internet of Things, I end up with probably about 15 different definitions. So for this study, the IoT Internet of Things is specifically devices that are embedded connectivity, have embedded connectivity to an internet or an internet addressable device. They can be wired or wireless. And their data can be accessed either directly or via the cloud. So that's sort of where we're defining, and I think the graphic on the right gives sort of a nice, interesting sort of tree on, like a decision tree on if it's an Internet of Things or not. And it definitely is, I think, the big piece there, it's got to be connected, right? It has to be a connectable device that can be part of a larger network. One of the most interesting things that I saw from this was we're really thinking about a timeline of the evolution of the Internet of Things, and they defined it as sort of like, it's kind of like an organism as it grows and develops. And moving from this area where historically data was collected by a select group, it was on-site, it required specialized equipment, now having moved to a place where there's many individuals that need to access this building data for a wide variety of purposes and via different and new technologies. And that, I think, is this evolution that we're in, and the studies have found that we're at this tipping point right now where we've connected a lot of things, we've collected a lot of data, and now we're actually accessing this data and beginning a lot of more interesting analysis, driving more information, more insights out of this data that has been collected. And generally, that's sort of the state of the market right now. Certainly, there are companies that are leaders in this, that are laggards in this, but generally speaking, that's sort of where we're finding ourselves right now. And it'll be really interesting, a little bit of foreshadowing here about companies that are at different levels of the spectrum, the things that they value at this time. And I think no matter where you are, you're gonna really, I think, see yourself in some of those individuals and some of the research that was done. I think that's pretty kind of a little bit awe-inspiring is thinking about this projection that by the end of 2025 there will be around 70 billion IoT connected devices, and annual shipments will have reached 18 billion devices per year. And this is a huge amount. And on the right-hand side are some of the drivers that are going to dictate this growth. And I think that a lot of this is going to look at what value can we derive out of this, right? Going back to the previous slide, thinking it's not about just collecting this information, right? But how do you really start putting this information to use, taking this information that has been collected and making sense out of it, and starting with asking the question of what do I want to know, what do I want to find out about my buildings, and what can I put to use. So net here is I think we're at a tipping point of this, and it is going to continue to be a massive growth in this concept of the Internet of Things and devices that are out there. So with that stage set, let's talk a little bit about some of the key survey findings. And this is where it starts getting much more interesting. And I'll put my disclaimer again that these are a little more text-heavy slides than usual, but hopefully that'll be very interesting information for you to have available as you sort of use this as a document to go back and reference. Some of the key survey findings, there's kind of 7 areas that I saw that were very interesting. One is information about a reduction of energy consumption and spend, ROI, how the application is being used, data security and storage, standardization, the ecosystem, specifically vendors, and then how does it affect business processes. First, in terms of reduction of energy consumption and spend, it's really interesting if you look on the chart here on the right-hand side. It really jumps out that improving financial planning and reducing energy consumption are significantly ahead of the rest of the group. What that shows is that the tangible benefits are top of mind and in terms of what people are paying attention to. The second grouping of advantages, you can kind of see it's sort of those next 3 that are grouped together, are about improving operational efficiency by streamlining and integrating building systems, enabling predictive maintenance to improve system lifecycle and reliability, and offer more data information on building performance. So you can see those things are really sort of in the second thing, but very tangible pieces in the front. And I think the remaining advantages scored much lower, and as you start going down, they kind of become a little bit more abstract in terms of what is it really, you know, how much individuals are looking to the Internet of Things to addressing certain issues and certain advantages to see coming from. So again, very much a focus on operational efficiency, on cost savings, on tangible business benefits. In terms of the return of investment, this was interesting in terms of, seems to be very consistent in terms of 85% of the respondents expected to get a return on investment within 3 years or fewer. And one of the things that was very interesting was, it also shows that larger companies have a much longer period appetite for a return on investment. So they have more capital they can input and wait for a longer time. But smaller companies are pushing for a much faster return on investment. And you kind of see that at the bottom in this chart, where it shows you, for example, that the 1 to 2 year investment, small companies, like 40% of small companies want a 1 to 2 year investment. So kind of very aggressive when you look at small to medium companies. And I'm sure that it'll be interesting to see how that compares to your organization. The application value associated with IoT. So this is about what were they applying the technology to. And again, here we see right at the top 2 by quite a large margin, matching to the previous one, very tangible benefits, right? Notification of system outside of normal parameters and notification of devices on the verge of failure. So those 2 by a wide margin, looking at what is critical. The top 4 here are all applications that are relatively well known, well documented for how intelligent buildings could function. So I think that's another interesting thing when you look at those top 4. They're kind of inside the mainstream. You start going down, you get to the more out-of-the-box functions such as occupancy information, weather system integration, location-based set point recommendations. All those kind of scored lower, and it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see when we go through the profiles of the low, medium, high, how those apply to those, because there is some variation when you start looking at some of the appetite. Interestingly enough, across the other profiles, it felt pretty, it was pretty consistent across all the responses, except for this one piece where you had people that were on the spectrum of higher automation. They were definitely more receptive to some of the newer types of services and the more innovative ways of applying this information. Data security and storage, concerns over attacks or security remain very high for individuals, and we're definitely seeing that a lot of the data, especially when we talk about control data, the data that's controlling the buildings, it's all being sort of maintained on premise. So there's a strong appetite to make sure it is maintained on premise. I think we start seeing differences on that when we look at displaying of data or analyzing data, which starts being kind of a much broader applicability. But security definitely remains a large concern when it comes to the physical security of buildings. Standardization was an interesting area because it is so critical, and open protocols, universal data normalization, as expected, are kind of at the top of what's needed here. Surprisingly, only 22% of respondents agreed that with this statement that issues around interoperability are preventing me from investing in innovative, intelligent building systems. So what that tells us is that the answer to that question is that it's not stopping organizations from investing in this type of technology. So yes, everybody realizes that there are shortcomings and that it's critical to find ways to create a more unified view, a more 360-degree view of the buildings and of the systems and so forth, but it's not really stopping investment for the general population that's investing here. Another aspect here is that I think it's becoming much more important for wireless and wired devices to talk to each other, specifically because a lot of the existing technology or older technology is wired, and it's now being combined with new technology that's wireless. So the interoperability between those two becomes much more critical, becomes a more important issue as we move forward. This is an interesting one, not necessarily that surprising of a one, but in terms of ecosystem, when these decision makers, these building operators were asked about vendor selection criteria, the two that went to the top was price competitiveness as well as product quality. I think that's not that surprising in terms of getting a great value. There was a significant drop-off to sort of the second tier, which had to do with quality and breadth of services and maintenance that's being offered with a broad portfolio and with innovation. And innovation was significantly more important to the high automation group than to other groups. It's kind of interesting because despite decision makers reporting that they would like more centralized control of systems and innovation, the results indicate that purchasing drivers are still quite diverse around what they're looking for. The last one is business processes, and that's changes in the current business practice to many companies in intelligent building markets are a direct response to controlled buildings. And this is sort of a changing role of the facility manager and changing expectations of individuals that are managing buildings. One of the big things that came out of the study was that the facility manager's role is transitioning and much more aligned with IT, much more focused around how to utilize technology to enhance the productivity, the performance of buildings. So I think that was one interesting sort of trend to take away from there around the role of facilities managers and the importance of IT and the relationship with IT. So in terms of summarizing the key findings here, it's around reducing energy consumption and spend, focused on financial planning, and very tangible benefits. An ROI that's definitely under 2 to 3 years. And I think that the trend there is that's shifting to lower, especially in an industry that traditionally has been focused around very long ROI periods. These kind of investments start looking at much shorter periods. Application values being very focused around notifications, around normal parameters, verge of failure, being able to get, again, very tangible, very leverageable benefits. Data security and storage on-premise still rules, but off-premise is really making some headway in terms of moving, kind of making more of a divide between the things that actually control the system, the buildings, and the things that analyze the data and the performance of the buildings. So we definitely see a shift there, and the industry kind of going in some different directions. Standardizations, I think that we talked a little bit about. I think definitely investment is going forward as standardization is being tackled, and it's a critical issue, but it's not holding back investment. In terms of vendor selection, price competitive, product quality rose to the top. And then on business process, we talked about facilities manager's role transitioning to be much more cooperative with IT. Based on those key findings, we'll now talk a little bit about the IoT roadmap for different individuals. And the way I broke this out was talking a little bit about what does it tell us about the low automation respondent group, the medium automation respondent group, and the high automation respondent group. Again, as a reminder, these texts, again, are a little bit more text heavy, but I think there's a tremendous amount of information and reference material there for you. So in the low automation group, a couple of key attributes that we saw is they tended to be represented by smaller portfolios. So the respondents have smaller physical building sizes. Definitely see the highest value of IoT being from reduced energy consumption. So that's the beachhead. That's sort of the starting point where they see the investments. In terms of return on investment, there isn't really a lot of expectation at this point as they're just starting to get moving on this. That's associated with they really value the, let's call it bread and butter type of functions and applications of the Internet of Things. This group definitely places less value on more imaginative, more innovative features. So, in terms of automation with different rules, algorithms, those kind of things are not at the top of mind for this group. This group should stay really focused on very much reducing energy consumption, reducing and optimizing the way resources are utilized. When selecting a supplier, this group than other groups, and less on innovation and quality of service. So this group still very much focusing on price competitive, a getting started type of solution. In terms of roadmap recommendations for these individuals is, in terms of education, I think it's important, what we saw was that it was important for these individuals to do a lot of education of the facilities managers themselves rather than the workforce. So the decision makers, the operations decision makers, those are the ones that are looking for education here and looking to create a roadmap for themselves and for their organization. The education is focused on, again, the very tangible benefits of automating such areas as HVAC, energy control, lighting. In smaller organizations, as we saw, a lot of these low automation are in smaller organizations. One thing that's interesting about the ROI is that some of the ROI is not as impactful because they have a smaller footprint, a smaller energy footprint, and so forth. So the Internet of Things sometimes can impact shortcomings in legacy systems and lower the point of entry in terms of open the door to new opportunities of changing the business process and analyzing information in different ways, rather than sometimes being, sort of a really big impact in terms of lowering energy usage potentially. Again, if you're in this stage, stay focused on fundamental benefits of building automation, better financial planning, improving energy efficiency, kind of really nail that piece rather than thinking about the imaginative, innovative features of Internet of Things. Explore cloud-based solutions, because the infrastructure and the way these companies and these products are structured often lower the cost of getting going on these, which for somebody that's just getting started is a great way to get started at a lower cost and get a more favorable ROI. Moving on from the low automation into the medium automation, this group was defined with the key attributes of it really was evenly distributed in terms of small, medium, or large portfolios. The highest ROI comes from financial planning and improving financial planning, so thinking about forecasting, thinking about making business cases, and so forth. They have some higher demands on the ROI than the wider sample does. So I think this sort of shows that this is a group that's looking to make significant investments, but doesn't necessarily have the financial backing necessarily of some big companies, but they're looking to sort of make this next big step. So it's sort of not the beachhead step, but it's sort of the significant next step, and I think that's where the ROI demands start to become much higher. The greatest value comes in features notification if the system's operating outside normal parameters, devices on the verge of failure, monitoring building systems remotely. So high value, higher than average value on being able to use advanced analytics starts to be a much important factor here. So we're really talking about here some predictive things, starting to use advanced algorithms, and starting to use automation a lot more. When selecting a supplier, this group starts placing a lot more value on product quality than other groups, and I think this is sort of showing how this group really is making a big step. So they're making a big investment into something that's new territory. They're really looking for somebody that's going to be a high-quality partner for them. In terms of roadmap recommendations, this group often has isolated areas of strong automation. So the focus should be in taking these smaller number of isolated areas, bringing them together into a common infrastructure, expanding the number of systems that have some level of automation with them, so also expanding the kind of systems that are being automated. Decision makers feel that they really require education on the benefits of IoT, and I think this is one of the differences from before, where before in the low automation it's a little bit more about what IoT is and what can be done. Here we really start focusing on benefits of IoT, again, because I think in this stage is when you're starting to make sort of your first really significant and bigger investments, and you want to make sure that you can make that business case. The decision makers here are becoming much more aware of the benefits of advanced functionality. Here we go why they're making some larger investments and kind of crossing that chasm, if you will, to looking at predictive maintenance, more sensors, and things like that. With that expanded footprint, they definitely are very aware of being sensitive to data security, and I think care should be very much taken here in terms of what data is being made available outside of the organization versus inside the organization. Start thinking more about which information is control type of information versus what kind of information is visibility and analysis type of information. Our last group is the high automation group. So this is a group that was generally represented across all the organization, but much lower in the very small area. So we definitely see the individuals in the very small area not being represented here as much as the large organization. They definitely see a high value of IoT coming from, again, financial planning, looking at financial impact. They have a great demand for a short return on investment, so shorter than 2 years. And I think what this shows is that this group has gone over the hump of feeling like they have made the large investments that are going to be the longer time frame type of investments, and are now looking to add on to the investments that they've already made. So it's already made. So they're seeing these investments now as incremental investments to a platform, a system that they've already built. So they're looking for faster return on investments by these incremental additions that they're making. They place a very high level on the value of features and the more innovative features than the other groups, and which just makes sense in terms of where they are. So they're looking for more high quality, incremental, innovative features. So that's kind of what you should be looking for if this is kind of the stage that you're in right now, is how do you start incrementally building on to the foundation that you've built in this medium automation stage that you were in before. And this stage, there's usually less opportunity to expand the range of systems that you're automating, so your primary focus should really be on more sophistication in where you already have automation in place. And with sophistication, I think it's more information that's being collected, maybe it's more integration of different systems that are joined and talking to each other. Centralizing control of different new platforms and solutions, centralizing visibility of the information that you have so it's not isolated, and explore advanced features. I think once you've reached this stage, it's definitely the time to start getting more innovative and looking for that next incremental investment. Although what's interesting is that we definitely saw that these organizations now are highly tuned to seeing rapid return on investment. So they've kind of experienced the larger investments and are looking for this immediate next return. Definitely leading edge. The education here becomes definitely much more around building users, management, and others. So it's about educating the building users for them to be more intelligently adopting and participating in enhancing the performance of buildings, as well as communicating to management about more funding, right? Creating the business cases and giving visibility to the. This is an area where we've seen some great success stories in our customer base of individuals that have really moved from being very operations or facility centric to have a much larger presence at the finance and decision-making table. Of course, as you're expanding these capabilities, there's a high sensitivity for security and close attention being paid to what information is being shared inside or outside the systems within the organization. So that's a lot of information, and I hope that it gives you a good overview of some information that you can go back to and reference. We will make this information available to you. In terms of what we covered, we talked a little bit about the background, the report background, how it was put together by CABA and Market. Setting the stage of IoT. IoT means they are connected devices. They are discoverable via the internet. Some of the key survey findings, we reviewed those. IoT roadmaps. Hopefully you were able to find yourself in maybe not exclusively the low or medium or high group, but sort of an arrangement of the different individuals that were able to be discovered here. Hopefully you'll be able to take this information and apply it to your individual situations. I've had the opportunity already to have some really interesting discussions with different companies in our portfolio around some of these findings, and it's like any other report where I think some of these really resonate with individuals and other ones maybe are not quite right on target. But I think it's a fantastic sort of a stake in the ground that you can use to help build your own roadmap, build your own business case, and help you in your journey to incorporating the Internet of Things into your building. With that, I think we tackled some of the questions as they came in. I was able to tackle them throughout the presentation. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us here today. If you have any specific questions or other information that you need, email us at sales@lucidconnects.com. You can follow us on Twitter at LucidConnects, and also keep an eye out for a link to this presentation, and we'll also repackage this in a recorded version of this webinar, as well as some other ebook type of formats. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.